went to a bar called The Forgotten Door. The name was not on any map, and the entrance did not face the street. It faced a back alley soaked in rain and silence. I did not go there for a drink. I went because of a letter I received 2 days earlier. It had no return address. Only one line was written inside. "You have forgotten something that remembers you." That sentence had been eating at me. I followed the location printed on the envelope's corner, which had faded into almost nothing. What I found was a building that looked abandoned, except for one light flickering behind a cracked wooden door. The door had no handle, only a brass plaque. 3 words carved into it: "Do not knock." I knew then this was not a place for everyone. It was a place for those who broke something inside. And I was one of them. The night I went to the Forgotten Door, the air felt heavier than usual, like it had absorbed all the regrets of the city. Rain slid down the cracked concrete like it was trying to wash away memories. My boots echoed against the narrow alley, surrounded by walls that leaned just a little too close, as if they were trying to listen. The building stood at the end, hidden in plain sight, buried behind dumpsters and broken neon signs that had not flickered in years. It looked like it belonged in a different decade, or perhaps a different world entirely. Its windows were boarded, but someone had carved strange symbols into the wood. Not just vandalism. They felt like warnings. I stood in front of the door. No knob, no bell, just that brass plaque with those 3 words, "Do not knock." My hand hesitated above the wood. I was not sure what I expected to happen. Part of me hoped nothing would. But then I heard the click. The door unlocked itself. No sound came from inside. Only a thin sliver of darkness welcomed me in. I stepped through. The scent hit me first, not alcohol or smoke like most bars. It smelled like aged paper, iron, and something floral I could not place. I stepped further, and the door closed behind me on its own. There was no one there to greet me. The room looked bigger inside than the outside suggested. Candles flickered on every table, but none of them cast shadows. The light felt artificial, as if the fire was only pretending to burn. Velvet chairs were neatly arranged around marble tables that looked untouched. No spilled drinks. No stains. No noise. Behind the counter stood a man. Or at least, something wearing the shape of one. His eyes were too still, and his skin seemed carved, not born. He did not smile. He simply nodded, once, and spoke in a voice that sounded like it came from under the floorboards. "You have entered the Forgotten Door. Here, memory is currency." I did not answer. I looked around. There were others, scattered through the room. But they were not speaking. Some sat alone, staring at the drinks in front of them like the liquid might speak. Others looked lost. Truly lost, like they had been there too long. The bartender placed something in front of me. A menu made of leather that felt warm to the touch. Not printed, written. And it was not just a list of drinks. It was a list of rules. Rule 1. You may order only once. What you choose will be remembered. What you do not will forget you. Rule 2. Speak only when spoken to. Every word costs a truth. Every lie costs more. Rule 3. You may leave only when the drink is finished. Do not spill. Do not waste. I placed the menu down. The bartender was already gone. A glass appeared in front of me, though I had not ordered. It shimmered dark red, like wine but denser. I could see images swirling inside it. Faces, places, fragments. One of them was mine. I should have left. But curiosity weighs more than fear when you carry enough regret. I took the glass and lifted it. It was cold, but not from ice. It was cold like grave soil. I brought it to my lips and drank. The liquid was bitter, like burnt sugar and forgotten songs. The moment it touched my tongue, a sound cracked through the room. A door slammed. Not the one I came through. Another. One I had not seen before. The bartender returned. "The drink has chosen," he said. He motioned to the hallway behind me. A girl stood there. She looked like someone I had once known in a dream. Her name formed in my throat before I could stop it. Ilara. She did not respond. Her eyes were hollow, but her presence screamed with memories. I had not thought of Ilara in years. Not since she vanished the night we were supposed to leave town together. No note. No goodbye. Only silence. I stood. The chair behind me scraped back, even though I never touched it. The patrons turned to look, but their eyes were not curious. They were jealous. The bartender spoke again, softer this time. You must follow. The drink demands it. Ilara turned and walked through another door, this one marked only with a Roman numeral 2. I followed. The hallway stretched unnaturally long, like space was folding. Candles burned blue. As I stepped through, the door closed behind me with a whisper, like wind through an old diary. The forgotten door had just begun to open. The door behind me vanished the moment I stepped through. I turned instinctively to retrace my path, but where the polished handle had just been, there now remained only blank, faded wall. My heart quickened, but I kept walking. The hall ahead curved slightly to the left, narrowing until it barely gave space to move freely. Each footstep felt louder. My breath felt watched. Room 2 was colder than the main bar. Not winter cold, but something deeper. The kind of cold that lives in forgotten places and abandoned attics, where time sleeps with dust and silence. The space opened into a small chamber, no larger than a single bedroom. A fireplace burned without heat. And sitting beside it was Ilara. She was not drinking. She was not smiling. She was tracing something in the ashes on the floor with one trembling finger. Her eyes did not meet mine. She spoke without looking up. You never came back for me. Her voice had not changed. The sound sliced through me sharper than any blade. I stood frozen, unsure if this was real or some cruelty crafted by that cursed drink. Ilara, I looked for you, I replied quietly, almost ashamed of the words. You waited a day, she answered. She turned to me now. Her face looked exactly the same as it had the night she disappeared. Same freckles. Same braid tied behind her shoulder. But her eyes, they held decades of pain. I waited a year, maybe more. Time works strangely where I went. I stepped closer, instinctively. She did not move. Instead, she pointed behind me. Another figure stood there. I had not heard them arrive. It was a man, my age, dressed in a dark coat, but his face was mine. Not a twin. Not a brother. And he looked angry. He did not forget me, Ilara whispered. You did. The figure lunged at me. I stumbled backward and my back hit the fireplace, but there was no burn. Only static. I closed my eyes. This had to be illusion, hallucination, something mixed into that red drink. But when I opened them, the figure was gone. Only Ilara remained. Her eyes softened. They feed on guilt here, she said. Every drink brings someone back. Some you lost. Some you left. And some you never even knew were gone. She stood. I could barely breathe. Why are you here? She asked. I wanted to say I did not know. But that would be a lie. Because I received a letter, I replied. Her head tilted slightly. You opened it. Yes. Her expression changed again. This time, it almost looked like fear. Then you started the path. The forgotten door does not call the forgetful. It calls those who tried to forget what should have been remembered. I looked at her carefully. And what happens when I finish the drink? She stepped closer. Her hand touched mine briefly. It felt real. Human. You do not finish the drink. The drink finishes you. Another door appeared. No sound. No motion. Just there, as if it had always been part of the room, hidden in plain sight. Carved across the top was a new rule. Rule 4. You may proceed only if you carry a memory that does not belong to you. I turned to Ilara, confused. She nodded once, stepped forward, and touched my forehead gently. A wave of warmth passed through me, and then an image, faint, like a half-remembered dream, slipped into my mind. A beach. A scarf. A goodbye never spoken. What is that? I asked. She looked down. That was mine. Before I could question it, the door creaked open. I stepped through, and the room fell into darkness behind me. I couldn't shake the warmth of Ilara's touch, or the image she'd shared, so foreign, so personal. It lingered at the edges of my mind like something half-forgotten. A scarf, a beach, and a goodbye never spoken. I had no idea what it meant, but it felt like a part of me had been peeled back, exposed, and left to breathe. The room I stepped into was cold. The air seemed thick, like it was waiting for something. My footsteps echoed in the stillness, and I instinctively pulled my jacket tighter around me. The walls were smooth, polished, a deep obsidian black that absorbed the light. But ahead of me, the thing that stood out was the mirror. A tall, oval-shaped mirror framed in intricate silver. Its surface gleamed with an almost unnatural luster, reflecting nothing at first. No me, no room, just a void. Then, as my eyes adjusted, the reflection began to form. I saw myself, but not as I was. The image was warped, twisted, like a reflection in water disturbed by a stone. My face was familiar, but my eyes were darker, distant, as though they held memories not my own. I leaned closer, drawn by some unspoken force. The reflection blinked. I froze. It smiled. A cold, unfamiliar smile that didn't reach its eyes. I could feel the dread rising in my chest, but I couldn't look away. The reflection raised a hand, just as I did, and placed it against the glass. I followed, hesitant, and as my fingers brushed the cool surface, the reflection did something that made my heart skip. It whispered, "You're not ready." The words came out of my own mouth, but not in my voice. It was like the mirror had somehow become a conduit for something deeper, something older. I staggered back, the chill of the glass still lingering on my fingertips, and stumbled into the center of the room. The mirror remained silent, its surface now completely still. But I knew it wasn't finished. The silence was deceptive, heavy with waiting. Suddenly, a soft sound broke through the stillness. Footsteps, faint but growing louder. I turned, and there, standing in the doorway, was Ilara. Her eyes were distant, fixed on the mirror. "You've seen it, haven't you?" she asked, her voice quieter than before, almost afraid. I nodded, unable to speak. My mind was racing, the reflections still playing in my head. Ilara stepped closer, her gaze flicking between me and the mirror. "It will show you what you need to see, but it won't give you the answers you want. The mirror doesn't lie, but it doesn't tell the truth either. It shows the fragments, the pieces of what you carry with you, the memories, the fears, the unspoken things." I wanted to ask her more, wanted to demand to know what it all meant, but before I could open my mouth, she raised her hand, gesturing for me to stay quiet. Her voice grew even softer, like a secret meant only for the walls around us. "Don't trust it," she warned, her eyes flickering to the mirror once again. "The mirror doesn't care for your truth. It cares for what you hide." And with that, she turned and left, her footsteps disappearing into the darkness beyond the doorway. I was left alone, the silence in the room pressing down on me, and the mirror's surface reflecting nothing but the weight of its presence. But as I stood there, the edges of my mind began to fray. The image from before, Ilara's memory, the beach, the scarf, flashed before me once more. It was like a key turning in a lock. The reflection began to shift again, but this time, I could feel something else coming. It wasn't just showing me memories or fears, it was showing me something else. A choice. A path. And I knew, deep down, I had to make it. The reflection in the mirror seemed to shimmer and shift, like the very fabric of reality itself was bending. The face staring back at me was still mine, but the eyes were no longer filled with confusion. They were filled with something else. Recognition. Understanding. A knowing that I had not yet come to terms with. I could feel the pull again, that quiet, insistent tug from the mirror, urging me to look deeper. And I did. My heart raced in my chest as I stepped forward, unable to stop myself. The surface of the mirror rippled, like water disturbed by a stone. The reflection shifted again, but this time, it wasn't just my face that looked back at me. There was someone else standing beside me. A woman, familiar but strange. Her features were soft, delicate, her hair long and dark, cascading down her back in waves. But it wasn't the softness of her features that held me transfixed. It was the sense of loss, of something that had once been mine, something I had once known but could no longer remember. The woman smiled gently, and it was as though I could hear her voice in my mind, as if it had always been there. "Do you remember me?" The question cut through me like a shard of glass. The pain was immediate, sharp, and unrelenting. I reached out, my hand trembling, but I couldn't touch her. She was only a reflection. And yet I knew she was real. She had been real once. The image faded as quickly as it had appeared, but the pain lingered, gnawing at the edges of my thoughts. My pulse quickened, the room around me feeling smaller, tighter. The mirror was no longer just a reflection of what was. It had become a doorway to something deeper. Something I didn't want to confront, but it didn't give me the choice to look away. I found myself speaking, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "Who are you?" My voice was raw, breaking under the weight of the question. Why do I feel like I know you?" The reflection remained silent, its surface rippling in response to my question. Then once again I saw her face. The woman in the mirror. She looked at me with such sadness that it felt like the world itself was mourning. And then her lips moved. "You already know," she whispered. The words echoed in the empty room, reverberating against the walls, filling the silence with a tension that made it hard to breathe. I stumbled backward, my chest tightening, the truth pressing against me like a vice. I turned to look at the doorway, half expecting Alara to appear again, but there was no sign of her. The room felt as though it had swallowed her whole. The door that had opened to let me in was gone, replaced by a wall of solid stone, cold and unyielding. And still, the mirror called to me. I stood there, paralyzed, the truth I had been running from beginning to creep into my mind. I knew her. I had known her. And I had lost her. Before I could fully process it, another voice, this one softer, more familiar, cut through the confusion. "Don't be afraid." I spun around, my heart hammering in my chest, but there was no one there. Yet the voice, warm and full of comfort, wrapped around me like a lifeline. The mirror had changed again. The woman was gone, but in her place was something else. A reflection of a moment, frozen in time. A memory, one I didn't recognize at first, but then it became clear. A room, small and dimly lit, with soft light filtering through dusty curtains. A table set for two, candles flickering in the low light. A man and a woman, sitting across from each other, holding hands. Their faces blurred, until one of them became sharp, clear, undeniable. It was me. And the woman? The same one in the mirror. I gasped, stumbling backward, as the room around me began to shift again. The walls closed in. The air thickened. I had seen this before. The memory rushed at me like a wave, crashing against my chest, filling me with a sense of recognition so powerful that it hurt. The scarf. The beach. The goodbye never spoken. The woman, she wasn't a stranger. She was someone I had lost. Someone I had left behind. And the mirror had shown me the truth. I had chosen to forget. The tears came unbidden, flooding my eyes as the weight of it all crushed me. I didn't know what I had been running from, or why I had buried it so deeply. But the mirror had found it. It had found the truth I had buried under layers of lies and denial. A door creaked open somewhere behind me, but I didn't move. The reflection stared back at me, the truth finally settling in my bones. And then, before I could even speak, the voice whispered again, faint but clear, "You're ready now." I stood there, trembling in the darkness of the room, the mirror's surface now calm, reflecting nothing but the hollow echo of my own broken thoughts. The voice had said I was ready. But ready for what? The weight of my past, the memories, the forgotten pieces of myself, pressed against me like a physical force. Every breath I took felt strained, like I was pulling air through a barrier, unable to fully inhale. I had left her behind. I had left her, and I had chosen to forget. The truth crashed over me again, a tidal wave of grief, regret, and an aching emptiness that had festered inside me for so long, I hadn't realized how deep it ran. She had been real. She had been mine. And I had lost her. I turned from the mirror, desperate to escape, to outrun the haunting truth. But the walls had closed in around me, the solid stone pressing against me, and there was no way out. No way to hide. The room felt smaller with each passing moment, each tick of my heartbeat louder than the last. And then, as though answering my silent plea, The door that had disappeared moments before reappeared. It was faint, almost hidden in the shadows, but it was there. I didn't hesitate. I stepped toward it, my feet moving almost on their own accord. I had to leave. I couldn't face the reflection any longer. I couldn't face the truth that had shattered everything I thought I knew. But as my hand reached for the door, something stopped me. A soft whisper. Not from the mirror this time, but from the air around me. "You must forgive yourself." I froze, the words cutting through me like a blade. Forgive myself? I didn't know how. How could I forgive myself for something so unforgivable? For forgetting her? For letting go? The silence stretched. I closed my eyes, trying to shut out the voice, trying to pretend I could simply leave and forget it all. But deep down, I knew I couldn't. Not anymore. The door in front of me beckoned, but the reflection, the truth, had already taken root inside me. I could feel it. I knew now what had happened, what I had chosen to block out. I had never truly let her go, had never truly said goodbye. And in doing so, I had trapped myself in a cage of guilt and self-loathing. A figure appeared before me, bathed in the soft, ethereal glow of the dim light. Ilara. Her expression was unreadable, but there was something in her eyes, something softer, something understanding. "You've seen it now," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken things. "The truth, the choice, it's yours to make. But you can't run from it anymore." I swallowed, trying to find my voice. How do I? My throat tightened, the words barely forming. How do I forgive myself? Ilara stepped closer, her presence like a quiet anchor in the midst of the storm I was drowning in. "You can't change what's been done, but you can choose to let go of the guilt, the regret. The past will never disappear, but it doesn't have to control you." She paused, her gaze flickering to the mirror before returning to me. "The mirror shows you what you need to see, not what you want. It shows the fragments, the things that haunt you, the things you hide. But it's you who decides what to do with them." I closed my eyes, letting her words wash over me. The memories were still there, heavy and painful, but I no longer felt like I was drowning in them. A strange clarity settled over me, like the fog lifting. I nodded slowly. "And if I can't forgive myself?" Ilara's smile was small, but it was enough. "Then you learn to live with it, and you make peace with it in whatever way you can." For a long moment, we stood there, the silence stretching between us, but somehow, it no longer felt oppressive. The weight had shifted. The reflection in the mirror, the one that had twisted and contorted my reality, was still there, but it no longer had the power to crush me. I turned, feeling something inside me release, like a dam breaking. The door before me was wide open now, and I stepped through, knowing the path ahead would be difficult, but that I didn't have to face it alone. And though the mirror still held the fragments of my past, I was no longer afraid to look into it. The door closed softly behind me, sealing the darkness of the room, the mirror, and the ghosts of my past in one final moment. The weight that had pressed down on my chest for so long was still there, but it was lighter now. The burden wasn't gone, but I had learned to carry it, to walk with it instead of running from it. I stood in the dimly lit hallway, the echoes of my steps muffled by the stillness. Ilara had disappeared as quietly as she had come. The silence felt different now, not oppressive, but almost peaceful. The walls no longer felt like they were closing in on me. I could breathe, finally. The truth had been ugly, but it was mine. And in facing it, I had realized something simple, yet profound. It wasn't the past that defined me, but what I chose to do with it. I turned my back on the room I had just left, my eyes tracing the contours of the hallway ahead. There was no turning back now. Whatever lay ahead, I would face it with open eyes, knowing the mirror no longer held the power to distort my reality. I reached for the door at the end of the hall, my hand steady as it grasped the cold handle. It creaked open, revealing a new path, one I had never seen before. The air was different here, fresher. I stepped through without hesitation, my heart steady, knowing that what I had left behind wasn't a mistake, but a part of me, something I could now accept. As the door closed behind me, the room I had left was swallowed by shadows, but the mirror lingered in my mind. It had shown me everything I had been too afraid to see. And for the first time, I understood. Sometimes, the hardest thing to face is yourself. But once you do, the reflection changes. It's no longer the same twisted version of who you were. It becomes who you are now and who you are becoming. And with that understanding, I took my first step into the unknown, no longer running, no longer hiding. I was free.